We're going to do a brief lore dive on Die-Hardman, Cliff, and Lucy, which obviously all go back to Sam. Bridget's BB experiments. As Deadman established in the course of his independent inquiries, the BB experiments were classified and carried out in an atmosphere of great secrecy. Deadman also asserts correctly that BBs were recognized as both media for chiral communications and as essentially human sacrifices. Bridget 1 was issued BB pods, some of which found their way into the hands of terrorists out west, who adapted the technology for their own ends. This is further evidenced by the fact that the pods currently in use by the terrorists are identical to those issued to Bridget 1 members. We can only assume that they were stolen. In any event, the true nature of BBs remained a closely guarded secret that we could not and would not disclose to anyone. This was the case from the very beginning, which is why, following the Death Stranding, government officials not in the know were certain that it was an act of terror. The actual cause, of course, was a cesarean section performed on a brain-dead pregnant woman. As you'll have heard, the surgeon who performed the operation saw a BT at the time. Bridget, who had just been inaugurated as president, believed that BBs could be used to prove to everyone that BTs did indeed exist. By dragging this invisible threat into the light, the people might come together again instead of continuing to drift apart. There were terrible risks, she knew, but if America was to be whole once more, BTs couldn't remain hidden. If only we knew what would happen when we revealed them to the world. I'm sorry, this is taking a lot out of me. Can we pick it up a little later? Sorry about before, I just needed a break. I'm ready to continue if you like. The BB experiments continued after the stranding, even though the official line was that they had been shut down. That's how we came to realize that BBs weren't just a means with which we could see BTs, they have the power to connect us to the other side. Power like that could help us make America whole again. Surely, that was our thinking at the time anyway. Not all BBs were created equal though. One in particular had potential that was off the charts. Yeah, you know which one I'm talking about. It was chosen to serve as the first sacrifice, but I didn't have the stomach to see it through. I couldn't do it. Not to his kid. Couldn't forsake that personal connection to save the world, I guess. So I tried to arrange a rescue. I betrayed my president, betrayed my country, and because of me, both Cliff and his BB ended up dead. It must have weighed on Bridget too. How could it not? Why else would she have taken in that little BB who died and came back to life as her own son? Another lie to comfort and console us. But there's no pretending it didn't happen. Not after Sam told me about the flashbacks he experienced when hooked up to his own BB. Not after I realized Cliff had returned. Realized he wasn't looking for a bridge baby, but his baby. His own flesh and blood. And now you know why I've devoted my life to the UCA. It's the only way I can begin to atone for what I've done. Now we're going to dive a little bit into Clifford Unger, specifically the case review of what happened with him and his BB and his wife. Captain Clifford Unger, former U.S. Army Special Forces, honorably discharged, was shot dead at a government facility under executive supervision. It should be noted that prior to this altercation, he had cooperated fully with our researchers and contributed to our ongoing BB experiments. On the day of the incident, Captain Unger took an experimental BB hostage and barricaded himself inside one of the facility's rooms. After assessing the situation, the president ordered that a non-violent resolution be pursued, ensuring no harm came to either the captain or the BB. However, this order was directly contravened by presidential advisor John Blake McLean, who shot and killed Clifford Unger. Following the incident, McLean refused to surrender himself into custody and fled, and was accordingly designated a most wanted fugitive. Efforts to locate and detain McLean were unsuccessful. However, the search was later called off when an unrelated investigation into a suicide found that the deceased possessed the same social security number as McLean. The body was cremated before physical identification could be performed. Okay, see, I'm having a hard time getting just through this fucking lore already. Because one, previously I wanted to say, okay, I understand Die-Hardman did not want to kill Cliff. He didn't want to participate in any of this. And he tried to save him. But then he just commits fictional suicide and comes back to still be at the beck and call of this woman that, yes, I understand that he loves and he pledged to protect or whatever because of the fucking UCA. But how do you do that? How do you take this man who you spent so much time with and that you tried your damnedest to save, and then pretend like all that doesn't happen? You go back to doing all the same shit that you were doing before that now you know is wrong because you saw a personal connection to it, and then you claim to be doing that for America? Reading this report kills me because, like, I understand they're not going to say the fucking president killed Clifford and his baby because the case review doesn't even admit that it's his child. He's just a random U.S. Army guy who's been cooperating in the experiments in this article. It does not say that it was his wife who was laying there dead on the table and his son in the BB pod that was about to be taken away, and that all he wanted to do was save his son, and his former Special Forces colleague tips him off and tries to save him and tries to get him out of there as best as he can, I guess. And then the fucking bitch shoots him and his child. Ugh. John Blake McClane was placed under Captain Unger's command upon being accepted into U.S. Army Special Forces. McClane performed exceptionally in training and subsequent deployments, earning commendations and a reputation as a born survivor who could be thrust into the worst situations imaginable and emerge unscathed. Around the time Captain Unger was discharged, McClane was chosen to serve as special advisor to President Bridget Strand, though his primary duty was to ensure her personal safety. He became intimately involved with the Bridges 1 initiative, as established by President Strand. Several days prior to the hostage incident, it is suspected that McClane collaborated with Captain Unger to abduct a BB. It has since been confirmed that McClane actively compromised security protocols in a manner which directly aided Captain Unger in his attempt. Therefore, it seems likely that McClane resolved to kill Captain Unger upon concluding that their plot had failed. Though their motives remain unclear, it is speculated that Captain Unger was in possession of compromising information regarding his former subordinate, which he leveraged to secure McClane's assistance in abducting a BB. When this attempt failed, McClane killed Captain Unger in a moment of desperation to prevent him from revealing what he knew. Later, when McClane grasped the gravity of the situation, he chose to take his own life rather than face the consequences of his actions. See, the other thing that pisses me off here is you're already going so far in the first review, to disparage Die-Hardman, and then just be like, oh, well, he killed himself, it's over now. And then you go back and you try to take some of that back from this dude who doesn't exist anymore because he's dead, and then place untoward blame on Captain Unger. Why are we changing the narrative so much here? Due to the circumstances surrounding the murder of Captain Unger and subsequent suicide of John Blake McClane, President Strand assumed direct control of Bridges to ensure that the BB experiments continued. As the organization's purview was expanded, their restrictions were reduced. They became President Strand's primary security apparatus, an elite organization under her direct command, wholly devoted to her mission of American Reconstructionism. A new director was subsequently appointed to lead Bridges, an individual only known as Die-Hardman. Now we're going to touch into Lucy Strand. I've just concluded my first therapy with Sam Strand. It was not held at the patient's request. Sam's adoptive mother, President Strand, approached me in the hope that I might help her son overcome his aphantasmophobia. Sam is an intriguing case. His reluctance notwithstanding, he recognizes that his condition has and will continue to cause him much distress. I suspect it is rooted in a childhood trauma, but unfortunately, we have only just scratched the surface, and I cannot even begin to speculate what it might be. Like many of the Bridges core team members, Sam is a doom sufferer. Unlike them, however, he is also a repatriate. Whether or not this is related to his aphantasmophobia, I cannot say at this time. But he would hardly be the first to manifest phobias as a result of his abilities. As an infant, Sam lost both parents and was adopted by President Strand. Owing to her stress and time-consuming responsibilities, I can only presume that she was unable to afford him sufficient attention, which is to say that a distant relationship with his adoptive mother may be a contributing factor. As previously mentioned, though, Sam is very reluctant to talk about himself. He is an intensely private individual, and it will take time to build trust and convince him to open himself up to me. Progress has been slow, but Sam has finally started to open up to me. However, his recollection of early childhood is confused and contradictory. He has difficulty distinguishing between genuine memories and reoccurring dreams. Sam even claims to have met his stepsister Amelie on the beach several times while quite young, an impossible claim to say the least. I'm only a little older than Sam, but I was born before the Death Stranding, a fact that tends to affect the way we think about the beach. In my professional opinion, the beach is a figment of our collective imagination, a shared delusion, but people born later are more likely to take its existence as a given. I wonder if they find comfort in the belief because it helps to explain phenomena like BTs and repatriates like Sam. Similarly, my theory is that Sam's manufactured childhood memories of the beach are his way of coping with the fact that neither Amelie nor Bridget spent much time with him. I believe this is also the reason he still clings to the dream catcher Amelie gave him even now, as an adult. You could call it a security blanket. It may also be the key to overcoming his aphamphasmophobia. If Sam were to emotionally distance himself from Amelie, it might reduce his resistance to physical intimacy. I will propose this approach to him in our next session. It came as no surprise, but Sam was unreceptive to my suggestion and rejected my assessment of his relationship with Amelie. He asserted that he is not dependent on her or Bridget, and even went so far as to question my credentials as a psychotherapist. His pronounced resistance to the idea only serves as further evidence of his dependency. Nevertheless, there is little I can do if Sam is unwilling to explore the possibility other than continue to share my observations and hope that he eventually changes his mind. For the time being, I've decided to focus instead on Sam's feelings toward Bridges and his place within the organization. Given that it was founded to support and protect his adopted mother, and that the other core members have dooms like he does, I think there is something to be gained from the discussion. His growing responsibilities within Bridges due to their expanding mandate and his abilities as a repatriate surely put him under greater pressure, and I wonder if his enthusiasm for their mission was sincere. Based on our time spent together thus far, I believe he may have embraced his role because it helped him to cope with the feelings of isolation that he pledged himself to an impossible endeavor because it was preferable to living and dying alone. I decided a different approach was required, and so I requested a meeting with the president. Discretion was vital, as any information which might suggest she is receiving mental health treatment could be exploited by her opponents. The meeting was listed as an interview in official records, though I was more than willing to offer my services had they been requested. I opened by asking about Sam's childhood, to which the president responded with an immediate and heartfelt apology. Her frankness shocked me, I must confess. She expressed deep regret for her failure to engage with him physically and emotionally, as she felt a mother should. At times it felt as though she was apologizing to her son by proxy. Her candor was as impressive as it was appreciated. The president told me that her daughter Amelie had mostly taken care of Sam in her absence. She glossed over the details, but she divulged that Amelie also has dooms and claimed that she would often take Sam with her to play on the beach. Interestingly, President Strand suggested that their time spent together there may be related to his current condition. President Strand loves her son. My meeting with her confirmed this beyond any doubt. The question, I believe, is whether or not Sam perceived his mother's love. Both Sam and the president talk about the beach as though it were real, a physical place, but I remain convinced that it does not exist, that it is a shared delusion, and that Sam and Amelie's so-called visits are mental constructs. Sam would not necessarily be aware of this, especially if it had been planted in his mind. Such an explanation would fit with his claims that he has never been able to visit the beach of his own volition. What if, subconsciously, Sam has developed an attachment to or longing for the beach, one that parallels his feelings towards his sister and mother? Furthermore, what if they have all become, in essence, objects of veneration? Upon further consideration, it is not so hard to imagine. President Strand is an exceptional woman who exhibits pan-romantic qualities, as does her daughter, Amelie. This is surely one of the reasons why they have been able to commit themselves so completely to the cause of American Reconstruction, their one true love. Sam, on the other hand, I have diagnosed as demisexual. His sexual desires are strictly limited to those with whom he has formed an emotional connection, excepting family members like Amelie, of course. It is only natural to more highly regard those with whom he developed an intimate emotional connection. For children, this can lead to veneration. Yet there is also an inherent contradiction to this, for divinity is distant by nature, even as we yearn to go closer to it. I've come to the conclusion that this contradiction is at the root of Sam's aphantasmophobia. I decided to share with Sam my working theory regarding his condition. I was prepared for some resistance, but the intensity of his anger was surprising. He glared at me as he reframed my assessment as a wild speculation that he had been brainwashed by a cult. It was the first time I'd managed to coax from him such a powerful emotional response. While I found it a little frightening, I did my best to remain professional, welcoming the breakthrough. The reduction in the distance between us. That was how I presented myself, but in retrospect, a part of me was delighted by his aggressive response. Sam stated that he is a repatriate. I challenged him and said that repatriation was nothing more than a fiction used to explain the phenomena of near-death experiences, one that makes use of the equally fictional beach. Emboldened, I pressed him further until I finally told him to snap out of it, to renounce his fantasies about the other side. For an instant, I thought he might explode in anger again, but instead he grew quiet, and after a long moment rose to his feet and left the room without saying another word. I fear I may have pushed him too hard. Oh God, where to begin? Sam turned up for his appointment today, right on time. I remember he looked calmer than usual, though that might have been wishful thinking. He'd been thinking a lot about our last session and how it had ended. He said that he wished I was right about the beach and what it meant to be a repatriate, that he appreciated the time we'd spent together, that I'd spent listening to his stories. And then he pulled out a syringe. He was so calm, though, at this point I sure wasn't. He said it wasn't all in his head and that he could prove it. Then he stuck the needle in his chest. It all happened so fast. I froze in my chair as he went into convulsions, eventually falling out of his seat. I ran to him, then as he was laying on the floor, motionless, I removed the syringe and performed chest compressions. But it was too late. I sat there next to him for what felt like an eternity. And then he opened his eyes and sat up, still wearing that same calm expression. There was another handprint on his arm, a fresh one, left by the dead he'd told me before. I'm a repatriate, he said. Every time I die, I get stuck in between and then come back. He was searching my eyes now, reaching for the words as much as they were struggling to come out. That world won't have me, and neither will this one. I'm only free to come and go when I'm with her, with Amelie. There were tears in his eyes. He looked so lonely, so I started crying too. I'd taken his hand in mine without realizing, but he didn't pull away. I squeezed, and he squeezed back. He needs someone he can be close to, be intimate with, someone outside of his family, someone who isn't Bridget or Amelie, someone to whom he can reveal the whole of himself, someone who'll devote themselves to him. Me. I don't remember what I said, but I remember that he nodded, that he smiled, that we held each other for a long, long time. A few days after the incident in my office, I tendered my resignation, a classic case of countertransference, the therapist getting emotionally involved with their client. And there was no way my professional pride would permit me to continue working. I felt guilty, of course. There's a permanent shortage of therapists, and many of my clients will struggle to find help elsewhere. But after what happened with Sam, I didn't see any other option. To be honest, I've already come to terms with it. What I'm doing for Sam more than makes up for it. I'd never normally use this word, but I really do believe his aphantasmophobia has been cured. He's shown so much progress that, absent an extremely emotional and traumatic experience, I doubt his symptoms will ever return. To my surprise, the president didn't have any problems with our relationship. If anything, she was pleased. I suppose this means I'll be joining the Strand family, together with this new life growing inside me. Our baby is doing well. We've been told we're having a girl. Sam's already picked out a name for her, Louise. Lou, he likes to call her. He talks to her a lot, touching my stomach, telling her to grow big and strong. Bridget was delighted when she found out and suggested that we take a family photograph. Amelie was out of town, so it was just the three of us. Blushing, smiling, and that same blush, that same smile when we received the printout, along with the apologies for being old-fashioned. There was a funny little message on it, "Be stranded with love." Handwritten and signed. It's unique now. You can't digitize or copy it. I'll always remember those words and that moment forever. Little Lou's 28 weeks now. The doctor just checked us both out and said we're doing fine. But I'm not so sure. Lately I've been having the same terrible dream every night. I open my eyes, and I'm all alone on the beach. I'm lonely and afraid, so I start wandering around, looking for someone, anyone. I spot Sam and Amelie, standing at the water's edge, their backs to me, relieved. I call out to them. Her hair shimmers in the gray light, but when she turns, it's her mother's face, twisted with sadness and pain. She speaks out, "I'll be waiting for you on the beach." And I scream. I scream so loud. Everything's gone wrong. I didn't understand at the time. I was a therapist, a good one, but even I couldn't make sense of the nightmares or what's happening to me. Bridget came to visit the other day. "They're not nightmares," she said. I hadn't told her yet. I felt Lou stirring inside me as she continued. She said she was sorry that she hadn't known it would happen. Lou's special. She said that a lot. Lou had Sam's blood, and through her, I was bound to the beach. Don't be afraid. She said that a lot, too. I'd cured Sam, made him whole, given him a life to live for, to protect, made him a part of this world. She had a lot to say about that, about how the world was a jumbled mess, life and death all mixed up, but Sam, my Sam, might be the one to make it whole again, like I'd made him whole. Without him, our fate was sealed, but with him, there was still hope for a future. And then she told me I was right. The beach exists within each of our minds, but that it didn't mean it was just a figment of our imagination. It had value, purpose, and in time, I would understand. She took my hand like I'd taken his on that day a lifetime ago. She smiled and squeezed. I was there, on the beach. Everything I had seen in my nightmares, I saw it in that instant. Somewhere inside of me, Lou was laughing, and then it all fell into place. Sam's birth, his family, the Death Stranding. For the first time, I saw how all the pieces fit into a terrible truth I didn't want to believe but couldn't deny. I saw my part in it too, and little Lou's. Those funny little words on the picture, "Be stranded with love," and I was. You'll have questions, and I wish I had all the answers, but I don't. I only hope this will help you understand. Lou's kicking woke me up. I was alone, still half asleep, so everything around me looked askew. That all too familiar feeling of the waking up and dreaming being tangled up. But you and Bridget and Amelie lead more even muddled lives, don't you? A reality between life and death, between this world and the next, because of all this chaos and confusion beyond imagination stranded on our shore. There are pills on the table next to me that I just took, all at once. I've tried making sense of it, but this was never my world. I was born into an older one without a beach, where the dead stayed buried and life moved on. Damn it, I'm shaking so hard. I don't think the drugs are working. I've got some syringes loaded with sedatives. Enough, I think. I'm going to use them, one after another, until I run out. I love you, Sam. I'll always love you. It kind of bothers me because, like, I'm a Bridget hater. I'm a Bridget and Amelie hater. Mainly Bridget, but I do wonder if Bridget and Amelie knew this was going to be a part of the plan. Like, if Sam didn't come around, Lou could have been his replacement. But without Lou, then there's just Sam. But if all of this didn't happen, would Sam have left his wife and his child to reconnect America, save the world, whatever? Who knows? Concerning the Voidout. UCA 01032 has been wiped off the map by a Voidout, leaving nothing but an enormous crater. Terrorism was suspected at first, but the investigation spearheaded by Bridges quickly ruled out the possibility and eventually concluded that the cause was the corpse of a civilian which had been left to necrotize unnoticed in an urban residential area. The deceased was Lucy Strand. Tragically, she was also 7 months pregnant. The child had already been named Lou. Cause of death was ruled a drug overdose, possibly intentional, though that remains unconfirmed at this time. Surveillance data was sent to Bridges HQ for analysis, but the results were inconclusive. Lucy's husband, Sam Strand, had been away for some time and became concerned when he was unable to contact his wife. Though he attempted to return home, the Voidout was triggered immediately after his arrival. Being a repatriate, Sam was the sole survivor of the blast. As the deceased was the wife of a prominent member of Bridges, who himself is the son of President Strand, public support for the organization suffered. Many criticized the crisis management team's handling of the situation, as well as the priorities of the organization and President Strand herself. Some believe that Sam Strand was involved in his wife's death and that he should be held to account. While both the administration and Bridges adamantly defended him for a time, public pressure continued to mount. In a gesture his coworkers suspect was his way of taking responsibility, Sam Strand resigned from Bridges. His current whereabouts are unknown. Yeah, see, I don't know. I just feel like, obviously the future can change. Like, Amelie, if she can see the end and she can see the not end, seeing all these pieces, she can see different variations of it. But Bridget's interactions with Lucy didn't seem helpful to me. And maybe that's because I'm a Bridget hater. But I feel like that really pushed her over the edge, which once again gives her more control over Sam, so she/Amelie can do with whatever they want. Maybe I'm reading the situation wrong because I'm a Bridget hater. But on that, I rest my case.